All right. I think I'm live and I'm hoping I can see people as they pop on here. So I am going live, my first Friday live at lunch with Deanna Powell and Intrepid Storytelling. So I thought I would start this live by just answering some questions that have been sent in by all of you. And if you want to pop your questions into the chat, I can see those too as they come in, and I'll just answer them as they come in. But one of the first questions that you guys were wondering about is, how did I become a single mom by choice? And sort of a follow up question is, am I in a relationship? So I saw that question come in too. So that's kind of goes hand in hand, because I'm just going to kind of answer that question for you as a two-part of sort of the same question. So when I was married to my first husband, I was a stepmom. And I just remembered that, oh man, when his name was Trey, and my son Trey is named after him. So Trey, we call him Big Trey because my little Trey is little Trey, and Big Trey is my stepson from my first marriage. So Trey, oh gosh, he was just the cutest little, sweetest little boy. And when he came into my life, and his father and I got, well, when we met, we weren't married yet, but I just connected with Trey immediately. Like growing up, I always wanted to be a mom. And in our very evangelical Christian Baptist culture, it was just, I mean, that's what you do. Women in our growing up, you just get married and then you start having kids and you have a family. Your stay-at-home mom is ideal. Really, when I was growing up and my mom was a stay-at-home mom, it was not expected that she would work. So ideally, the women in families, and the idea that I would just become a mom was sort of second nature, was expected. Now, not to say that, oh, well, not every woman should be a mom or even be expected to be a stay at home mom or be a mom at all. But I really wanted to, because I was good at it. I had dolls growing up. My brother even mentions, and I'll mention this part later as we get into my two youngest are adopted. I'll get into that story of how I adopted them. But uh, my brother wrote in a letter to the foster care agency on behalf of me, that I was just meant to be a mom. And he always saw me growing up taking care of my dolls. You know, they went everywhere with me. I was just a mom by, you know, I guess default. I don't know. I was just always a mom, even with my dolls growing up. So when I met my first husband, and he had a son from his he had a high school sweetheart, and they were teen parents. And when I met him, they had never married, but she and I ended up becoming friends. And when he and I'm not going to mention his name right now. Maybe one day, I don't know. Uh, we had a great relationship. We were just very, very young. So when we got married, that marriage didn't work out. But when we were together, and his son and I connected, I just fell right into that role: wife, mother. Uh, you know, I loved getting up, making breakfast, making his lunch, getting him ready for school, taking him to school sometimes, but mostly, I just love the role of being a mom. Now, fast forward. So he was 3 when my first husband and I met. Trey was 3. And then Trey was 5 when we married when his dad and I married, and then uh, when he was 8 years old, which is actually the age of my daughter now. He was 8 years old when his dad and I divorced. So he was in my life for 5 years. And that relationship as a mom and a wife really just impacted me so much. And when that marriage didn't work out, and that experience of being a mom and a wife and everything was like almost like ripped away from me. It's how it felt at the time. Um, but it just was so devastating because you never get married and think you're going to get divorced. But um, when that relationship didn't work out and we went through divorce, as a stepmom, I had no rights whatsoever to see Trey. And this is something that when you're a stepmom, only step parents know and understand that there should be a special stepmother's day or stepfather's day because it's totally different than a biological parent. And it's even different than an adoptive parent. That role of a step parent is just unique in its own way. So um, anyway, when we did not work out, and then, Trey was with his dad, and I didn't necessarily wanted to see his dad. I just wanted to see Trey. And every once in a while, I would like call and say, "Do you guys ever want a babysitter? If you ever need a babysitter, I just miss Trey so much. Like, would you allow me to babysit? Because I just miss him. I want to spend time with him." So there was one time that his dad called me and said, "Hey, like I'm going to go out with my buddies and you want to come and watch Trey?" And I was like, "Yes, I do." So I went to his house. Oh, geez. And there he was, my ex-husband. And I played with Trey, and it was such a special time for me because I just missed him. And then, like my ex came home and he was trying to hit on me and stuff. And I'm like, "No, we're not together anymore. And I don't want to have like one last wild ride." And so I just decided that was where my boundary had to be. Like, if that's the reason why you're asking me to come over, I can't do that anymore because I have to protect my heart. And it's not going to work out. So, like, why would I try to keep staying in this anyway? So, the experience from that made me just crave being a mom again. And every relationship after that, I would, after I had to pick myself off the floor from being so depressed from going through that divorce, that it was really devastating. But when I did start to date again, I always pictured myself, can I have kids with this person? Can I have kids with this person? And it's actually a good lesson for if you can see yourself raising kids, um, guiding them, teaching them the lessons they need to learn. Um, I don't like the word discipline. In my house, we call them consequences. But if you would dole out consequences for, you know, misbehavior, whatever. I try to give real world consequences to kids. I don't spank. I don't think that's not a real word. If you're an adult and you talk back or you're disrespectful or you do something, you make a mess, that you don't get a spanking. So I don't do that in my house. I try to say, when you grow up, these are the consequences for what you're doing right now. And so anyway, if the other parent is not going to give consequences the same way you do, then yeah, that's not the right person for you. So anyway, uh, I had many relationships, and I'm just going to fast forward many, many relationships. And I am very grateful I never had children with any of the next relationships that I was in, because that would have been absolutely detrimental to not just my mental health, but more importantly, if I were to bring children into a world of chaos, abuse, neglect, um, just toxic, like a house where there's always fighting, or they're walking on eggshells, or you know what I mean? Like, I just could not. Thank God I didn't have kids with any of them. So, fast forward to after I got sober, and I dated someone, and that was a very fast, quick whirlwind of a relationship. This was my really the last true relationship I was in, was with my third husband, and he was also a father. So he had two kids, and I was a stepmom again. And I grew very attached to them in the very short time that we were together. But thank God that relationship did not, or that marriage didn't last very long. I met him, married him 4 months later, and within that same year of me meeting him, and then 1 year later, we were divorced. I was like, "No, no, 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 no. This is another big mistake. I have made another big mistake." So, no. And so we divorced. That was quick, and thank God. No kids, and it was a clean break, and, and a restraining order, which was helpful, but anyway, that's for another time. I still wanted to be a mom so bad, and uh in my process of being sober, staying sober, I say this in some of my other times that I've told my story. I I volunteer to stay sober. I love to volunteer. So give me a nonprofit, sign me up to volunteer. What do you need? Like, where's your greatest need? Put me to work. That keeps me sober. So, one of the places I volunteered as I was going through my sobriety journey was a foster and adoption agency with Olive Crest. And Olive Crest needed babysitters for the foster kids while the foster parents would meet once a month. And that was one of my favorite volunteer activities, was babysitting the foster kids. Imagine a room, okay? They would do it at Microsoft, on the Microsoft campus, in one of their meeting rooms, and they'd have 2 rooms, one for the parents, one for the foster kids. And I would sit in the room with the foster kids, and we'd order pizza, and we would write on the dry erase board, and we play games, and we watch movies. And, some of these kids with like ADHD were just bouncing off the walls, but what a cool experience, right? Like, I was just like, oh my gosh, there's 12 kids, and thank God this is only like 2 hours long. But it was fun, and I got some really great experience, just learning about foster kids and just different behaviors, and then what the parents need. And I had it in my heart, I'm going to be a foster mom one day. I'm going to do this. But in the back of my head, I'm always thinking, but I need to be married, and whoever I marry has to be on board with being a foster parent. And so, how am I ever going to meet that man? So, like, that was always going to be, I have this traditional family. Well, about the same time, like, this is in my mid 30s. Okay, so I got sober at 35, 30. I can't remember how old I was because it's been so long, but I was 35. I think I had my 36th birthday while I was in jail, so because that's part of my story, from a DUI. And then I get out a year later. I met and married my ex-husband, my third husband, a year later. So I was 37 or 38 at the time that I'm doing the foster kids and learning about fostering, and then just thinking, I got to meet a man who wants to be a foster parent. Okay. So at the same time, I also was meeting with a fertility doctor, because like, thinking about freezing my eggs, because if I meet a man and he wants to be a parent, and, like, what if it takes me a while to meet this person, get to know them? It would take a long time to build trust, enough trust that I need to know that they're not going to betray me like all the other men have in my life. So, um, anyway, I wanted to freeze my 38-year-old eggs. So I met with a fertility doctor at Seattle Reproductive Medicine, and we call it SRM for short. But anybody who's been to SRM, and some of you moms out there that have had IVF babies and gone through the process at SRM, we're like, this is my SRM baby. So anyway, you can relate. So I met with a doctor there, and we were talking about freezing my eggs. And she had a conversation with me. This is about the same time I'm learning about fostering. And I said, I want to freeze my eggs because if I meet a man and I want to have 38-year-old eggs, but I also want to be a foster parent and foster to and adopt ultimately if that's what is needed, because kids that go to foster only uh, families get bounced around. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. If they come into my home, they're not going to another foster family. They're either going back to their biological family if it's safe, or they're staying with me because that's the stability they need. So that is what that's what I always planned on doing. Now, the doctor said to me, well, okay, so let's say you meet this man and he's great. He wants to be a foster parent, but he also wants his uh, biological. Let me back up. Sorry, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. I was at an Olive Crest seminar, and up on the stage, like out in the audience, we're all sitting here, and up on the stage, they're talking about how many children need homes in the state of Washington. At the time, it was like 16,000 foster kids that needed to be placed and needed loving homes. And I'm sitting there, single Deanna, crying my eyes out in the back pew of this church that I was sitting in, just going, I just want to bring those all the babies that need loving homes. Like, I have so much love to give, and I've been giving it to the wrong people, and I just want to give it to the kids, and I just want to do this so bad. And so I went to one of the booths that were out in the lobby when the seminar was done, and I asked one of them, I said, do single people ever foster? Like, do you have to be married? Because I thought the answer would be yes. And they said to me, oh, yeah, single people foster all the time. There's like a whole community of single foster parents. And I was like, oh, it was like the sky parted and the sun was shining right down on me. And I said, I don't have to be married to be a foster parent. I'm doing this. I am going to be a single foster parent. Okay. So it was the same time. And then I'm also going to this fertility doctor saying I'm going to freeze my eggs, and if I ever meet a man, then we can have children together. Okay, so I'm talking to this fertility doctor, and she said, "Well, Deanna, like you're 38, and let's just say you meet this person. Maybe you even get set up so people know what kind of person. But how long would it take for you to say?" I trust you. Let's get married. Let's start having kids. How many years? Because you're saying it would take a long time for you to trust someone. How long is that? And I would see, well, 10 years. I'm like, I need to know somebody for 10 solid years to know that he's not going to leave me like my first husband did. Like he's not going to cheat on me like my this boyfriend that I thought I was going to marry, like he would do. He's not going to be abusive like my second husband was. Like he's not going to be abusive like my third husband was. Like it's going to take me 10 solid years of me watching, trying, like I'm like expecting him to do something to F this up. So, okay. She goes, well, in 10 years, you're going to be 48. Let's say you meet him today, and in 10 years, you'll be 48. And let me show you on a little graph here how long, like what will happen if you get pregnant today at 38 today at 38, and then in a year 39, and at 40, how long or how what it will take to get pregnant, one, to stay pregnant, two, and three, to have a healthy baby at that age. So at 38, 39, and then at 40, it drastically moves down, like on a graph. And at 41, it drops again. And at 42, it drops again. And she goes, you are not at the age where you can like wait 10 years to see if you really want to have kids. If you're going to have kids, you really, she goes, take it or leave it. This is my advice. You can take it or leave it. But, you know, if you never meet someone, what would you do as an alternative? Do you still want to get pregnant? And I said, yes. I would probably just pick a sperm donor. She goes, I'm going to give you advice, take it or leave it. Pick a sperm donor, have your biological baby now. Because if you meet a man, you're saying if you meet a man and he's going to have to agree that he wants to be a foster parent, then wouldn't he love and accept you with your children no matter what? And I had to think about that. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Like if I came with kids, he would have to accept my kids and he would have to love them. And, you know, and she goes, well, just take it or leave it. Pick your sperm donor now. Have your biological baby while you can, a healthy baby, and then become a foster parent later. So don't become a foster parent first because you can do that at any age. Have your biological baby now, become a foster parent, and then whoever you meet will love and, you know, just love you as the full package with you and your kids. And I had seen plenty of my friends who've been through divorce and gotten remarried to wonderful guys that had loved their kids. So I knew it was possible. So that's what I did. I sat in her office and she said, take it or leave it. And I literally said, I don't even need to think about this right now. I already know I want to do this. So that's what started the process of me then. Oh man. So I knew I wanted to, but was that the right decision for my future children? Is to raise them in a single parent home, okay, where I'm not divorced to their biological parent, right? So Audrey, and ultimately what I decided, after months and months, first of all, it took me several months to pick her donor, the donor who is half of her genes, okay, and maybe even identity. But it was very important to me to pick a sperm donor that was willing to meet her when she turned 18. That is a non-negotiable, okay? They have to be willing to be anonymous, okay? Now, until she turns 18, she can't meet or find him, or I can't, because I'm the one who signed the contract that I would not contact him before she turns 18. She hasn't signed a contract. She didn't have the option. So technically, she can do whatever she wants. And I'm not going to stop her, but I'm not going to because I signed the contract not to contact him until she turns 18. Anywho, I picked him for several reasons, and maybe because we're kind of coming up on the end of our life here. I uh, I could really go on and on about this because it's so much fun to talk about. But I'll tell you all the reasons why I picked him on another life. So I picked him. I started an IUI process, which is just the insemination. It's not as invasive. They don't pull the eggs out, fertilize the eggs, and then put them back in. It's just insemination only. And I tried that how many times? Oh my gosh. I think it was 9 times. I went through that process 9 different times throughout the year. And it took me a year to go, okay, this isn't working. Let me do IVF. And when I did the IVF, they extracted the eggs, they fertilized, made embryos, and then they put the embryos back in. And that's another part of the story that is very detailed. But like I said, for time's sake, I won't go into that detail. Now, I had leftover embryos when I had Audrey, and then I was connected with her donor siblings, which is such an exciting thing. I'll tell you that story too, if you have more questions about that. But when I had Audrey, oh, she was my dream come true, and I was finally a mom, and nobody's nobody can take her from me. And gosh, she's just the best thing that has ever happened to me. And when she turned 2, I had some embryos left over. I tried to have a sibling for her, and I did get pregnant. That pregnancy ended in an pregnancy ectopic. I'm not saying that right. Anyway, it's where the embryo grows, but then it stops growing. And sometimes you need a DNC in those situations, but in my situation, I didn't. And again, that experience was very traumatic for me because I passed the pregnancy on my own. And I'm just going to save that story for another time. Anybody who's had that experience or had to go through, who's lost a pregnancy, maybe we could get on another live and talk about that because I think it's important to talk about. But anyway, so when I lost that pregnancy, I was like, okay, now it's time. It's the sign. It's time to foster. And I got licensed to foster. It was around like the COVID time. I started the process. It got halted by COVID. I started it back up. I was connected through a friend to a family that was fostering one of 2 siblings. And the mom, the mom, her name is Ashley. I got to connect with Ashley and get to know her. And we built a friendship. And I asked her, do you want to just do an open adoption agreement? Because if you feel like you just cannot keep up with these visits and, like what the state's asking you to do, but why don't we just make it official? And then you and I you tell me when you want to see the kids and I'll bring them. I really believe in connection to biological family. So she did. And I brought Trey home first. His birth name at birth, the name Ashley gave him is Tyler. And so I brought Tyler home and then went through the adoption process. Oh my gosh, that whole story too is very, very complicated and detailed. And we can talk about that also. But I brought Tyler home first. And then because DSHS wanted his older sister, Allie is Ashley's name, named her Allie. And then I gave her an additional name, Evelyn. So I call her Evelyn, but her birth name at birth was Allie or Alexandria. And when Allie came home and Allie and Tyler together, and then I adopted them, there's a whole nother story that comes in to play with Trey, Tyler, because his biological dad did try to fight for custody of him. He was fighting another case at the time, so it was kind of in conjunction with that. Anyway, he also, I'm not going to name his name, but he also agreed to an open adoption. So once he agreed to that, and Allie was already legally free, then the adoption for the 2 of them was finalized. So anyway, that is the story of me becoming a single mom by choice. And I choose to be single because it is the healthiest and safest way for me to raise the kids. It would have to take I don't even entertain the idea of a relationship right now. It's not, I'm not really interested in it. I have a lot going on. I'm a real estate agent full time. I am running this podcast, which is my absolute passion. I love hearing people's stories. That and then raising 3 kids, young kids with activities and school and traveling and seeing biological family. I don't have time or the energy to put into a relationship that would require more of my time. And I feel whole. I don't feel like I'm missing anything, which I feel is a very healthy place for me. I don't think, I'm not saying that this is right for everyone, but it's right for me and it's right for the kids. And I can just tell how healthy, in a healthy place and safe place that they are in this home. So Thanks for asking those questions. And if you have more questions for me, please send me a private message or when I go live again next Friday. I am just excited to hear all the things you're curious about. Like I said, my private life has so many different facets, whether it be about parenting, um, getting sober, volunteering. Um, Gosh, travels. I've traveled around the world. I've lived a very full life. So if you have questions about any of that, I'm an open book. And then, I'm also a real estate agent. So don't forget, if you have questions about real estate, if you have questions about the podcast, please just send them my way. And I am happy to answer all your questions. So until next week, live at lunch, I'm signing off. This is Deanna Powell with Intrepid Storytelling. This has been fun. Thanks for joining me.